Hello everyone, my name is Megan Ballingy and I'm one of the librarians at Heartland Community College Library. And today I have a short video for you on how to evaluate resources that you find at the library. Specifically if you're using our iShare catalog or when you are searching in a database. And I'm going to use one database for an example, Academic Search Complete. And what I'm going to use is two different resources here. Everything that I'm going to use is going to be linked in the description below so you can have access to them there. And there will be timestamps on the video as well. So to start off, what I want to do is talk about an evaluation criteria that was developed by some librarians at California State University, Chico, and they called it the CRAAP Test. And this is evaluation criteria. When you search for information, this can be used. You're going to ask yourself these questions about the resource that you are deciding whether or not to use. And this can be applied to all different types of information, whether you're looking at information on a website, just Googling on the internet, or whether you are actually searching for library resources. Even if they are accurate and authoritative, they may not be right for the project that you're working on. So I'm going to go through this criteria and then we're going to do a sample search in each of those databases that I mentioned before. All right, so currency, the timeliness of the information. When was the information published or posted? So you may want to switch your publication dates. Is there a revised or updated information? Does your topic require current information or will older sources work? A lot of times for research papers, depending on the field of study, your instructor may want you to only search for materials that are 10 years old, 5 years old. You may want something that's even more current than that. Relevance, the importance of the information for your needs. So does the information relate to your topic or answer your question? Can you figure out who the intended audience is? And this is really important when you're talking about academic and scholarly articles. Is the information at an appropriate level? Is it too scientific? Does it go way over your head? Is it meant for upper level researchers, or is it something that you, at your level, can read and understand and comprehend? And have you looked at a variety of sources before deciding to use this one? It may be pretty easy to find 5 different articles, research articles, but maybe you don't want to choose just the first one that you find. And would you be comfortable citing the source in your research paper? And this is a good question because you want to think about the requirements you have for your research. If your instructor is telling you that you need 5 peer-reviewed sources, then you don't want to use a magazine article. So you have to make sure that it's relevant. On authority and accuracy, these I would say you would focus on a little bit less when you're looking through this criteria versus if you were searching just on the internet. Because we know that materials that you find in library databases are going to be mostly scholarly and academic. It's a little bit easier to make a decision on whether you think it's authoritative or accurate versus anything you would find on the internet, right? So if you were just asking the question, which source would you rather cite in your paper? A source that you found on Wikipedia, in a Wikipedia article, or a source that you found in a library database? just having that question asked, you would probably choose the library database. So that's not a rule that you would always go by. So let's take a look through these. We're just going to focus on them just a little bit less. So authority, who is the author, publisher, source, or sponsor? This is still relevant as far as the publisher. Is it published in a newspaper, a magazine? Is it published in a book? What are the author's credentials or organizational affiliations? Is the author qualified to write on that topic? And can you find information about the publisher and email address? That is more for an internet source, but you could definitely look and see if there's more information that you can find out about the publisher or the author, even when you find it in a library database. Accuracy, the reliability, truthfulness, and correctness of the content. So where does this information come from? Is it supported by evidence? Are you reading an article that has evidence and is backed up? You can still, even using a library database or using the catalog, find a source that wouldn't work for your paper. You may be searching for a topic and you might just find a book review, and that isn't necessarily all of the information about that topic, and you wouldn't want to use that, probably you wouldn't want to use that in your paper. So you still have to make sure that you are vetting that information. Has the information been reviewed or refereed? When we are talking about peer-reviewed, some materials that you find in the library catalog and in library database will not be peer-reviewed. I will show you in the Academic Search Complete in that library database how you can click. There's a box that will just filter out everything that's not peer-reviewed. And peer reviewing is a system where other academics in a field will review materials that are written by an academic to make sure that they're accurate and that it's truthful and they have authority on that subject. And that's the peer-reviewed process. So basically those are the top level of academic papers. The term refereed means a very similar thing. So that's what that is referring to. When you are searching in a library catalog, you may come across a video. There are articles there are books, and those may not be peer-reviewed. They may be just materials that, let's, for an example, say a book, it may cover a topic, but we can't say for sure if it's been peer-reviewed. So keep that in mind. Can you verify information in another source? So are you finding several articles or materials that are reflecting the same thing? Or does one of them kind of stand out and you're not quite sure if that's truthful? Does the language or tone seem unbiased or free of emotion? And are there spelling, grammar, or typographical errors? Under purpose, the reason the information exists. And this is all still relevant in academic materials. What is the purpose of the information? And to what audience, really? Is it to inform, teach, sell, entertain, or persuade? Because you can find articles that are pro or con. You can find materials that are published in, let's just use an example of a news source. So we know in the current political climate, there's really a division between the left and the right, Republican and Democrats, and there are also publications that lean certain ways in the information they publish. So do the authors and sponsors make their intentions or purpose clear Is it fact, opinion, or propaganda? Does the viewpoint appear objective and impartial? And are there political, ideological, cultural, religious, institutional, or personal biases? So we can use the CRAAP test and this criteria to think about the materials that you're going to use in your research. During spring semester 2021, we are working on our library website, and all of our information is on this guide, Library Resources for Spring 2021. And this has all of our up-to-date information for this semester. And this is where I'm going to be accessing our iShare link and also the database links. Let's start with using iShare. iShare is our library catalog. So think about materials that are books, ebooks, videos, etc. But we also have access to articles through iShare as well. And this is everything that's at Heartland, but also materials that we can find from other Illinois libraries that we can borrow from them and borrow on your behalf. So there, if you are looking for a book or another library resource and Heartland doesn't have it, you can request it for free and they will send it to us and you can come pick it up. So let's start off. I'm going to use the topic of food insecurity. And first, I'm going to search all iShare libraries. In the search results, it looks like we're close to 4,000 search results. And when you're looking at your search results, questions that you're going to ask yourself are these related or relevant to your research? Who are they published by? And what we're going to do is look at our results and the categories on the left-hand side, where we can do a little bit of filtering, or sometimes we call it refining your results. And we can pick different categories of basically of information. So here's where you can choose peer-reviewed journals. Something I haven't explained yet, open access. Open access materials are sometimes journals, sometimes books that are available on the internet for free, and sometimes they are academic in nature. Sometimes they have been peer-reviewed, sometimes they haven't, but they are available free and they're not behind any paywalls, so you don't have to log in to use them. So that's that type of resource. So there's a lot of really great academic resources, but you use the same sort of principles to vet those and use those criteria to make sure that they're relevant for you. The creation date, here's where we're looking at the currency. On food insecurity, do we want to look at a material that's from 1789? There is one in here from that date. Or are we looking at the last 20 or 30 years? Those are decisions that you have to make depending on your research. I'm going to change this to the year 2000. And when I click on the little button on the left, that is going to, if I make other selections here, I have to go down and click this little green box that says apply filters. Sorry, it's cut off by the screen capture, but once I make some selections here, I will be clicking that. So I also want to look at the resource type. Books, journals, we've talked about those a little bit, videos, conference proceedings. This is an interesting category. a lot of academics have various entities that basically are authoritative or organizations that are kind of pioneers in their field. In the library world, we have the various library entities that organize us and have conferences on various topics. So sometimes you can find great resources in a conference proceeding. So for example, I'll use in medicine, someone is presenting at a conference on a new technique of maybe, it could be anything really, but maybe it's a new device for heart valves. And it's new information, and they are presenting it at a conference to get feedback from their peers. So that may be some great information there. You can also click Show More. Sometimes there is more information, and this really depends on what you're searching. We can also explore the subject, and this will search within a subject area that is within food insecurity. So this all deals with the relevance of your materials and what you really want to find. Let's just focus on getting this within the last 20 or so years. And then we can take a look. And you'll see a lot of these are books. There are some journals also. To find out more information about each source or resource, you can click on the title and then read a little bit more. Usually there is at least the book chapters. In this item, there isn't a lot more information, but another way that you can find out more is you could actually copy this title and paste it into Google and take a look and look for more information about that book. And you want to know what's appropriate for your topic. If I'm focusing on global food security, this would be a great book and relevant for what I'm looking for. But if I was focusing on food insecurity or food security amongst college students in the US, this may not be an appropriate source for my research. So even though this may be a great book, a great resource, it may not be what you want to use for your research. I'm now going to go to the top, and instead of just searching all iShare libraries, because most of those materials are going to be books, videos, etc., I'm going to go to articles, and let's search that same thing, food insecurity with articles. Now I have almost 500,000 results. So the more results you get, the more confusing it can be. Now, once you change that basically search at the top here, this selection at the top, it resets all your filters. So I would want to change this date to 2000, And here is where we can take a look at newspaper articles. Are those going to be what we want to use in our research? Or do we want articles and peer-reviewed? Let's use this filter, peer-reviewed. Usually that is going to default to articles, but I will go ahead and click that as well. And I'm going to apply the filters. And instead of the results we had previously, now we have about 170,000 results. So a lot less, but now we know that all of these materials are going to be peer reviewed. And you can see there are some symbols here that tell you whether the journal that this was published in was peer reviewed. So how do we know what journal this was published in? Well, we have some of that information here in the citation. It's hard to see on this page, but it's right there. If you are looking for an easier way to look at that information, you can click on the title, and that will open another page. Now that I've opened more information about this article, if I scroll a little bit, it just breaks the information into an easier way for me to read that. It shows that this was published in Diabetes Care. Here are the creators, the authors. Here are the subjects that this focuses on. And then you will see a description. Sometimes you will see it labeled as an abstract or a summary, and it will give you some overview of what this is focusing on. So this article is focusing on food insecurity, limited food access owing to the cost, and living in areas with low physical access to nutritious foods. And it's focusing on patients with diabetes. Again, looking at that and thinking about, is that going to work for a research paper on food insecurity among college students in the US? It may focus on a part of that population of students that may have diabetes, but this is probably not going to be an article that would be helpful for that research. So even though this is peer reviewed, this is a great research study, it won't be relevant for your research if that was your topic. If we go back, I'm going to take away the peer-reviewed journals. And actually, I think I'm going to reset all of my filters. So we're back to that almost 500,000 again. Okay, so we can see our resource types here. I'm going to change this date, and then let's look at newspaper articles and apply the filters. When we're looking at newspaper articles, we may see larger newspapers that cover a wider range of areas. We may see metropolitan newspapers, small town newspapers. So that's also part of evaluating this information. The newspaper may cover an area that is not focused on your research topic. This one is this is from the Toronto Star, so we're talking about Canada here. We also see Chicago, which is a relatively local newspaper for us here. You can see here's a newspaper, Sun Sentinel, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So we want to think about where it was published as well and how that relates. Now we are going to search Academic Search Complete, and we're going to use that same research topic of food insecurity. And with this database, it covers a wide range of topics and subjects. And I'm going to start just with food insecurity. With that search term or that keyword phrase, I have almost 5,000 search results. Now with this type of information, this database, the types of information you may find may be very scientific or they may be very general. And you have to make decisions about whether or not it fits that relevancy. And we can do that again on the left-hand side with our filters and refining our search results. Here is where we can choose peer-reviewed journals. We can also change the dates. And we have some different source types here. If I click magazines, and I am looking within the last 20 or so years, I'm going to find more general magazines that these articles are going to be published in. I may find popular news publications, or I might find, for example, more academic materials like this one, International Journal of Voluntary and Nonprofit Organizations. Again, we want to think about these types of journals. Since I just clicked magazines, I don't know if some of these are peer-reviewed or not. Keep that in mind. Here is an article published in the American Journal of Public Health. And again, we're looking at the dates as well. So even within a library database, these might not work for your research paper, or they may work just perfectly. Book reviews, most likely you would not be using book reviews. I think I mentioned that before, but it may be a source where you can find someone talking about a book that you want to look up. I'm going to click on under source types more, show more, and it's going to pop up here. Sometimes there are more listed, sometimes it just gives you the same list, and it looks like depending on your search topic, it will change. So it just looks like all of these materials are also listed on the left. But I do want to point out trade publications. Trade publications are another type of resource that they're a little different. They may look very similar to a magazine, but trade publications are generally meant as publications that are focused on a certain sector of business. For example, there are construction trade journals, auto parts trade journals that may have, or waste disposal that may have articles pertaining to that sector. So those may or may not be, most likely not peer-reviewed, but it is another source of information. So even among all of these materials, you do still have to use some of those principles of the CRAAP test and that criteria to make good choices about the materials you're using in your research projects. Another thing that I didn't talk about so much in this video is these search boxes here. In library databases, you have to be very intentional about the types of the phrases and the keywords that you enter. Now, I put in food insecurity. Putting in food security may get me the same amount of search results. It may not. Also, in this database, it said, did you mean food insecurity? So sometimes it will suggest the correct search term. I will say most of the time it will not. So having that correct, or maybe not correct, but the basically finding the search terms that are going to find the articles that you want is really key. So my tip with searching library databases is if you search once and you can't see, you don't find a lot of search results, and it doesn't look like anything in the results list is relevant, you'll want to work on finding synonyms for that term, going to Google and just searching to see if you have the right terminology, because terminology changes over time. Even this example, food insecurity, may have been in previous decades just referred to as hunger, or other search terms. So terms change over time, and that can also be a sticking point. But what I do want to point out is our contact information is here on this library guide on the Ask a Librarian page. You can email us, call us, chat. You can set up a research appointment, which is one-on-one help in searching for resources on your topic. If you need help, if you're running into the problem of not knowing what kind of search terms to use or keywords, we can help you with all that, and we would be happy to help you. All of these skills that you're learning and searching and doing your research are things that take some time to develop, and we have lots of practice, and we would love to help you. So if you have any questions, please let us know. And I hope this video helped you figure out kind of the different resources that are available through the library, and how to take a look at that CRAAP test and evaluate some of those resources to make sure that you're using the right ones for your research. So I hope you have a great day and good luck on your project.